Happy Friday, everybody. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. We're going to do things a little differently today because that's what we've had to do every week. I often host the show since quarantine from my restaurant, Della, here in Brooklyn. But today, because of my guest, I'm very excited about this guest. And the topic of today, it is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am actually in my home dojo right now. My martial arts school is also closed, as they are across most of the country. So immediately we put mats down in the apartment as my wife and my daughters train as well. We didn't let the quarantine stop that at all. So I'm in full regalia, rash guard, board shorts, the black mat, the whole thing here, summoning the spirit of jiu-jitsu and all the amazing people that have given this gift to the world. Before I introduce my guest today, I would like to share the message of the week, which is something that in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, your head instructors, your black belt instructors are referred to as professors. This is a message that my professor, Professor Karel, has said many times. He's also apparently a friend of my guest today. I just learned that recently. There are many messages in the practice of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's often stressed that the training is 75% mental, 25% physical, although it looks different from the other side. But that's the amazing metaphorical part about training in martial arts. And this is something he has said many times. Martial artists are like the sculpture that sees the finished statue in the uncarved block. As martial artists, we are always seeking to make order out of chaos. And I think that's very applicable these days because there's plenty of chaos. It's like, as soon as you get one thing under control, boom, there goes another one. If it's not, a pandemic, it's riots. I'm just waiting for the asteroid to fall in like New York Harbor and cause a little tidal wave. But that's why if you got a good break fall, you'll be okay. Right? So with that, I would like to introduce my guest today. It is Professor Karel Pravec. He is the owner and head instructor of Silver Fox Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. No relation, Jeremiah Fox and Silver Fox, but maybe one day the foxes will unite.
We are part of the extended Renzo Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu family, so true, I think we are related to some extent. So
yes. How are you doing today?
Excellent.
Awesome. It is really a pleasure to have you on the show. The show is, mainly about entrepreneurship, but I have found through my journey as a business owner and a martial artist, so many connections between the two. And I reference jiu-jitsu at least every show, usually multiple times. I've had other dojo owners on and martial artists, and it's just it's a wonderful thing to have in your life. But if you are a business owner, I argue it's a necessity these days. So you're both. You are a black belt jiu-jitsu instructor, and you own more than one school, correct?
Yeah. Well, I like to think of it as one school with two locations.
There you go.
It's very important to have the same kind of atmosphere, same kind of spirit in both of them. So yes, I think a lot of people, it's kind of funny because what you mentioned about restaurant industry, that you were in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's kind of funny because I think a lot of people that don't know, they love to have a martial arts school or restaurant. There's certain businesses that people think of as, I love to have that because they just see the surface of what is happening, and it looks great. Yeah, it is great. That's I love teaching. I love training, but you have to do a lot of other things that you need to do, especially in restaurants too. That's a rough industry, very hard to survive. And I, commendable anybody that can survive for more than a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. And martial arts schools as well, right? It's not an easy gig. I always tell people, and I think it's true because I'm involved in a number of other small business and brick and mortar. That's been my past for the most part, has been brick and mortar retail, most of it dealing with food and beverage. And I tell people all the time, like, you are on the front lines constantly. It's just, you can never get comfortable, which is like so martial arts, right? Like, just don't ever think you're good. Like maybe I think I get the feeling like you're like, I'm good.
No. That's, if any martial arts instructors and owners are listening, I'd like to, being on, being uncomfortable, or you can't ever get comfortable. I think that there's a message is in this. First of all, I think one of the first things that people learn in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. You have some guy way bigger than you laying on top of you, and you have to somehow, usually it involves you tighten up your cores, lifting your head off the mat. It makes things a lot easier. And you have to be comfortable because you can't think. You will panic if you do not get comfortable and understand, okay, I can do this. I can get out. And if, I think this virus thing, it's thrown a loop to a lot of small businesses. Mm. But the way I look at it is, guys, it's going to keep us very sharp, because if we just give in, or if we just run things as normal and just like expect, you get too comfortable and too complacent, that's not a way to run a school. Sometimes you got to rise up to the occasion and suck it up and move on and do it all over again and do it better. So
yeah, my message is, it's like if you go into class and there's just this big guy and like you're at the same level, but he's bigger than you and stronger, and you're just under him the whole time. And it just feels like that beat down. You could leave class and be like, man, I'm terrible. You can leave class saying, wow, that was an amazing experience, because one, I'm still alive. I survived. And that you probably got just a little bit better. You don't realize it. It's another thing that Professor Karel stresses all the time, is that you don't see your incremental progress on a daily basis, but the instructor.
We do. We see it.
Yes, exactly. But when you're under that big guy and you're squirming and you're like, okay, and you're not panicking, like that's a win. That's a huge win. And the same can be said about, I think, entrepreneurship and small business owners. When you're in this is a fucked up situation, and yeah, you gotta wrangle and wiggle a little bit. And I'm known as a squirmy one in the dojo. I'm one of the smaller guys. I'm 150 pounds soaking wet, but I managed to like wiggle out of most things. And I kind of
squirminess is good.
Yeah, I like it. That's my, no gi. That's why I'm in. Oh my God, it feels like Brazil out here today. I don't know where you're in New Jersey, correct?
Yeah, I'm actually in my school, which is currently closed down. But we film online class every single day. But I forgot to put the air conditioning on, so it's okay. I'm in a corner of my apartment in Brooklyn where we don't have air conditioning. I got the windows open, and it started to rain, like nice summer wind. But oh my, it's humid. It's how it feels. Feels like a Brazil in here. It's okay.
So let's give everybody a little backstory on you, about how I believe you told me the other day you were in finance prior to this.
Yes, I was.
How did you go from finance to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? That's an interesting trajectory.
I think at first I started actually training martial arts. I think before I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was into striking, Taekwondo, not Olympic style Taekwondo. This was before Taekwondo got into the Olympics. And what wound up happening, basically it's the Kung Fu theater that got me into it. Bruce Lee, Kung Fu theater, channel 11, channel 5. And I was watching the movies. I really enjoyed it. I always wanted to train. And, I started training. And, as I progressed through the ranks, I had my favorite training partners, and there was 4 or 5 of us that kind of used to spar together on the side also. And we used to go to a lot of seminars. Seminars back in the day used to be a whole weekend event. And it used to be, you sometimes start on Friday afternoon. You do Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. And we used to go to everything, Jeet Kune Do style seminars, which is Bruce Lee's. It's not his style. It's more his philosophy. We used to go to Bill Wallace, Superfoot, amazing, kickboxer, Joe Louis, and guys like that, Small Circle of Jiu-Jitsu, Walla J, which a lot of these guys were disciples of Bruce Lee, which they actually wind up taking whatever Bruce Lee's philosophy was and applied it to their own sort of inclination. So long story short, we used to train and incorporate whatever we learned into our training. And one time, a buddy of mine, I was a black belt in Taekwondo, and I was already teaching some classes, and he was brown belt, but he was a tough guy. And he's like, listen, did you ever hear about these Gracies from Brazil? I said, no. He said, well, here's a tape, VHS tape. Check it out. And by the way, they're coming into New Jersey. This is in Chariton, New Jersey, in Parsippany, 1991. So check it out and take a look at it, and we should go. So I looked at it. I was like, interesting. Well, I'll go. So wind up going. Everybody was there. It was Hickson was there. Hoyler was there. Hoyce, Halio. It was 20 of them. Like Horian is probably about 10 adults and 10 kids.
I think I've seen a video of this. Is there a video of it?
I don't know if a video exists. It was in Sheraton Tara. It was in a carpeted room. I don't even remember if we had mats. I don't think so. It was one of those big conference rooms that usually have tables and everybody's paying attention to the speaker. And I still remember to this day. I remember, at the end, you would spar and you roll with, Hickson and Hoyce. And I remember Hoyce got on my back so quickly and kicked me in the nads as he was putting his hooks into. And I literally felt like a baby. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. I really need to explore this some more because I just felt helpless. So, the next year, 92, they came into the city, into one of the New York, CUNY, City University of New York colleges. I forget, East Side, Upper East Side. So I went again. This time there was start to be money, and the word started to spread a little more. So there was a little bit more splintering. So it was only like 5 adults and a couple of kids. So it was not as massive as the other one. In 93, Horian sent Craig Kukuk, who's first American black belt, to teach in New Jersey and New York and Philly. So basically, and he had a prompt falling out with Horian. So he was doing tapes. He wanted to do, instructional tapes. So he talked to Renzo and got Renzo to partner up with him on the tapes. And Renzo started traveling to the New York metro area and started teaching classes, would do private, stay for a month, film, and then go back to Brazil. And then Renzo moved, I believe, in 95. So this happened in 93, 94. In 95, Renzo moved, I believe, permanently to the U.S. to run a school with Craig. And Craig was a hard ass, and he basically, nobody knows him. And nowadays he moved to Idaho. And I've been with Renzo ever since he started teaching first, and then I've been with him since that time.
Wow.
So that's how I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Initially, I was training more. I always trained 6 to 7 days a week. I'm training 7 days a week now, but I'm always more interested in the early parts. I was more interested in striking, and I just wanted to have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just in case if I got taken down. And as I'm doing this over time, I'm, training once a week Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and 6 days a week, primarily stand-up. And then a year later, it's 2-3 times a week Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and 4 or 5 stand-up. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing, man, this is a lot more intricate than I thought. There's a lot more to it than I thought. And I had a really hard time in the early days. Now, my first 10 years was a very rough ride for me. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I've learned more in the last 10 years than I did in the first 15, I think. Part of it was I'm on the mats every single day. If I'm not on the mats, I'm training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the water. It's an oddball thing. But once I got to a certain level, I started to understand it better. I do not understand why I didn't quit, because it was very, very frustrating to me. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand and this is one thing that I would encourage people to explore when they start to get to high blue and purple belt levels, is there are different styles of game. And I thought there was one style, like you got to smash and pass the guard and kill. And that's not necessarily the way. And the more I tried it, the more I'm, a little heavier than you are. Probably right now I'm 157. But still not the strongest guy, not the biggest guy in the room by any means. And
yeah, it's hard to smash it that weight.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. My technique was not good enough to withstand, their strength, power, explosiveness, athleticism. But over time, that tide has turned. It will take time, but it will turn. And now I understand it better. My body has been to a large extent rewired. Where it makes sense. Like I can literally get into a position and try to figure out, is there a better way to do this? Or how do I get out of it, even if I've never been into it. So, like I said, I got into it, over time I've ramped up. And since I, opened the school 14 years ago, I used to train, even before then I used to train every single day, about an hour a day. Now I'm on the mats. If I'm training in the water, I'll be in the water for 40 minutes training, drilling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu solo drills. That's my recovery day. But if I'm not on a day I'm in recovery, I'm going to be on the mats, anywhere for an hour to two training for myself. And then, 2+ to for my students. So I could be on the mats, 4 hours a day, maybe even more. So probably putting in 15, 20 hours of mat time, training time a week. So now my game is progressing, at a better clip than when I was, what I would call an avid hobbyist.
Yeah. We're going to take a little break, but I want to pick up with that and talk about your underwater training, because that's how you first landed on my radar. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a minute, everybody. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Okay, everybody, welcome back once again. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Professor Karel Pravec, owner of Silver Fox Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has 2 locations in New Jersey. He is a Renzo Gracie black belt. And you were just mentioning in the last segment, your underwater drills. Do you want to explain to everybody what that is?
Yes, I will attempt to do that. So I've
never seen a fox swim before. I
don't know. I do. So I've always liked water. I always enjoyed being in the water ever since I was a kid. And I got inspired to, first of all, it started with solo drills, meaning drills without a partner. There was a tournament in Colorado way back in the, I want to say maybe in the early 90s, called Sabaki Challenge. Kyokushin guys, eight guys, Kyokushin karate. And they would stand almost toe-to-toe and just wail on each other. You were not allowed to punch in the face. You were allowed to kick in the face. And one year, the guy that won it was a guy from Japan. And they said, can you believe this? This guy won this. And he rarely trains with training partners. He trains solo. And at the time I was training, primarily striking, still jiu-jitsu probably 2 to 3 times a week. And I was traveling a lot for my job. That was, I had to get up literally, I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go into the city and get, plan to be back in New Jersey by 6 or 7, but back home.
And what exactly was the gig that you were doing? You said you were in finance. I wanted to
syndicated finance, syndicated loans.
Okay.
So I was like, man, that sounds interesting. So I started to do some solo drills. I bought a dummy for my basemen, and there were times when when you commute into the city from the suburbs, if you leave an hour earlier, you get 45 minutes, maybe half an hour of that back because the traffic's a lot lighter. So I started commuting into the city, joined a gym, fitness gym, that had a pool, and I started doing primarily striking in the water. And I was like, man, this is good. It's making me better. It reinforces the muscle memory, the resistance of the water. It makes you faster, more fluid. Pardon the pun. I was enjoying it. I was like, man, this is good. So I primarily did striking. It's a no-brainer for anybody that's a striker.
Yeah,
this is a no-brainer for you. And then over time, when I travel, it's always easy to get a hotel with a pool. So I would, if I had to stay in a hotel that didn't have a pool, I would move the furniture around. I'd do 1,000 kicks before I went to meetings in the morning. If it had a pool, I would go train in the pool, do solo drills. And then I started to incorporate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The weird part with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the breathing, because you want to. I've had trouble with my lower back since I was a kid. So the buoyancy of the water really tremendously helps if you have any trouble with your joints, with lower body joints. Your shoulders, neck might not help so much, but lower back, hips, knees. The buoyancy of the water is a tremendous asset, and I believe the flow of the water as you're moving through it is actually therapeutic. So I started to really, incorporate some of the jiu-jitsu things, jiu-jitsu movement into it, and over time I started to, it became a go-to if I didn't have a training partner or if I was traveling. And about 10, 12 years ago, he's a black belt under Matt Serra, another, former UFC world champion, first American Renzo black belt.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a doctor, this guy, Yasha, and he takes care of a lot of jiu-jitsu guys. And, he looks at the MRI of my back and he starts telling me, and I was like, Yasha, I really don't want to hear this. Like, because, it gets it, if you hear too many, it gets into your head. It's like, this was the lower, every single vertebrae was herniated, compressed, and all. I kind of just started to tune him out. I almost like closed my eyes, I didn't want to hear it. So he says, I didn't go quite that far, but he said, listen, that water training that you do, you should not just do it when you don't have a training partner. You should make that part of your weekly routine. That should be your recovery training. And I do believe that this has helped me tremendously in acquiring skill, in becoming faster, because martial arts is muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talented. I'm good, but I'm not talented. So it builds your muscle memory. The resistance makes you faster. The visualization is also a tremendous tool. So I think it's really contributed to me evolving, to this day at a much better rate than I would if I just basically trained 3 days a week and took the other days off to recover.
Right.
So I strongly recommend people try it if you want to. It's an oddball thing. If you want to go to silverfoxbjj.com YouTube channel. There's a playlist on water training from there's I think 4 videos. Some some of them are pretty short. So you can check it out. It's an oddball thing, but guys, if you have problems with your lower joints, you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to running, you can apply it to boxing, you can apply it to karate, you can apply it to kickboxing, and you can apply it to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You have to breathe out before you go underwater. You have to engage gravity to some extent. So there's a buoyancy, that's what you want, but you want to, if you just take a deep breath, you're going to float like this.
Yeah.
So you have to engage buoyancy to some extent. So check it out.
The first time I became familiar with you was at Sun Dojo and Professor Karel. I just walked in, and I'm an avid swimmer too. I've been, right now we can't because I was going to like public pools. But prior to that, swimming pretty regularly for about the past 7 or 8 years. And I believe he was a swimmer too when he was young. I think he was a competitive swimmer. So we talked about it a bit. And I come in one day and he's just at the counter and he goes, check this out. It was you underwater. Because I know he knows that I love the oddball exercises. Like I do the traditional stuff too, but man, I like if there's
we call it unorthodox.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like this is just awkward and most people are gonna scratch their head, I'm like, I'm gonna be the best at that. Like you guys can have your push-ups. I can do push-ups all day, but like I want to do that one, you know, like when he taught us to invert, I was like, I'm going to just stay upside down and spend a lot of time that way. So, you know, I saw that. And then honestly, cause I'm a busy fellow too. I don't spend a lot of time, you know, I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos these days, maybe a little bit more because school is closed, but I literally just trained, you know, but I'm very active on social media. And I noticed you are as well. We'll talk about that a little later, but something funny happened just a few weeks ago where you know, for Twitter, I just have the account for the radio show and I'm constantly engaging with other radio show hosts. And one guy was just like, if you could pick 3 people that in this world that you would love to interview, that would probably never come on your show. And, you know, I'm into food and music and martial arts. So I picked David Chang from Mamafuku because I just loved him.
Okay.
I picked the lead singer from Faith No More, Mike Patton, because I just fascinated by him. And I said Renzo, and Renzo, like, he saw it and he retweeted it and like, oh, nice. Crazy. And he was like, I'll totally come on the show. And I was like, are you serious? And then like a few minutes later, he retweeted something of yours. It was one of your antivirus things. And I was like, that's the dude, that's the water dude. And then here we are. And it's funny because I clicked that link and right away you were talking about pandemic response and you were speaking as a business owner, you know, which was the really fascinating thing to me. You were talking about your school, you were talking about your business, you were talking about your staff. And I watched today's show too. You were talking about it again today.
Okay.
And that really drew me towards you and sparked the interest for having you come on, because again, it is a show about entrepreneurship for sure. And the parallel. So one parallel you were just talking about, you had this physical thing you had to work around and you had to take an unorthodox route, but in the end, it has made you so much better. And we're having to do the same thing as business owners right now too, right?
Yeah. I think, you know, people have to understand, like, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. I think a lot of small businesses are not going to survive. The ones that are not going to survive, probably they're undercapitalized or just did not, you know, guys, when you run a business, you have to have fiscal responsibility. Without it, you could be the best guy in the world. If you can't survive, you know, how is that going to help your business? But I think it will take us a lot longer than people expect to get back to where I was before the pandemic. And, you know, it means I got to be sharp. The guys that work for me, you know, in the school, I've been paying full payroll for the last 3 months, even though we're closed down. But, you know, I believe that if we have the means that we should do it. And also, you know, some of my guys, I know that if they didn't have, by the time they get unemployment, they're probably going to be living with me and I'm going to be feeding them. So
might as well just pay them, right? Because it's tough feeding jiu-jitsu guys, man. They like to eat.
No, but they were easy. Like I have the similar taste. So like we film, I committed. I didn't think I was going to do this for this long. You know, when we closed down the school, and I did it before mandated because I wanted to do my part in flattening the curve. I basically said, guys, I had a kind of a global audience. We got guys from Australia, New Zealand, India, Israel, like literally, Africa, Europe, with a lot of countries, Brazil, Venezuela, Costa Rica. So I basically did a Roll with the Fox, kind of a troubleshooting video interactive session where people once a month, they can give us questions as we're filming, and we answer those questions as we're filming. So it's an interactive approach, and it was great. I did 9 months of it, once a month, first Friday of every month at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And the reason I made it 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, because I wanted to accommodate more so people in outside the U.S. or Canada, trying to get a time frame that works for all of them. And it was, it got a lot of traction. And then when I closed my school, I said, you know what? I'll do this for everybody, for my students and for everybody. I'm going to do a daily, we call it antivirus edition, but we're filming daily.
Yeah.
So we just finished today, episode
89.
90.
Was
I
it
think today,
90? I'm like, what's your Enrique? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I'm like him. He's just saying the numbers.
He starts saying season 3, and I have hard enough tracking the numbers, but I believe today was 90.
Okay.
Yeah, today I think was 90.
All right.
So I thought I was going to have to do it for 2 months. Like I figured we get to episode 60. So now I'm taping. Like a lot of the people that were tuning in, they're still watching. It's on YouTube again, Silver Fox BJJ channel if you're interested. There's some funny stuff. We always try to convey 2 things to people. One is technique, and the other one is, guys, you got to have fun. You enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I want people to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as much as I like it. One time it was unintended. I accidentally put him out. So live
episode 9, right?
19.
19. My numbers are all up. All right, we're gonna take. I'm gonna bring it in. We're gonna take another quick break. We'll be back in just a few. Everybody, I'm gonna clear my head up. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Okay, everybody, welcome back again. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Professor Karel Pravec of Silver Fox Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Northern New Jersey. Once again, no relation, but so you pointed out that there is a bloodline.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu family, Renzo Gracie.
Yes. So, in the last section, you were talking about your YouTube presence, but backing it up a little bit and talking about being versatile and the things you've had to do, one, to be a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, also transitioning from finance to being a martial arts instructor and owning your own schools. You mentioned, being capitalized. I'm sure your years in finance gave you a little insight into that. But now, as your schools have progressed and your experience as a teacher, you started to incorporate the use of digital technology for outreach and messaging, and right now it's playing a pretty big role in your existence. Correct?
Yes, I would have to say that my digital technology reach out is reluctant.
I get that. I understand that.
I basically my digital presence is for two things: is to basically make people more aware and point them about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And then second one is probably for some poor dog or cat that needs adoption. And I share that. There is so much negativity, so much argument. People take things personally. Some people play trolls where they try to almost elicit reactions. I just read an article in Forbes before I came here that there's artificial intelligence that can literally take still photographs or video footage, and basically almost make anything happen where it looks like this person said this and you have it on live TV or something. It's to some extent it's distressing. So I try to have a balanced approach to it where I try to stay away from a lot of stuff, whether it's controversial or not. If I know what to say and try to make somebody feel better, I will. If I don't know what to say, keep my mouth shut.
Right.
I think sometimes people feel compelled to say something, and there's a saying, having your mouth shut is, speaking might be silver, but having your mouth shut sometimes is gold. I forget exactly how the saying is. But anyways, yes, I am on social media, but reluctantly. And like you said, I am interested in helping people progress in jiu-jitsu and occasionally help a poor dog or a cat find a new home. That's about it.
And your YouTube videos are live. That's not easy. That's not easy to get. Not everybody gets to do YouTube live. So that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Go ahead.
Yeah, we basically started it. The idea was to go live because, if it's live, it can be interactive. So I can answer somebody's questions, and that's the best questions and reactions. And we got a lot of very positive feedback from people literally all over the world saying, Fox, this has literally made my days when, they either were quarantined, they couldn't train.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got people that don't even, initially we kind of have a little bit of fun, just kind of screwing around for the first minute or two with, some stupid bit with Enrique. But, I have fun training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think people can sense it. I think, it's funny because a lot of people's presence online and is very different from the person they are in real life. I think what you see with me is what you get. I try to basically add, like, this is how I run my class. And people have also said, like, I feel like I'm in a jiu-jitsu class. And that's like the best compliment I could have gotten, because that was the whole idea is, guys, in the absence of many of people, including my students, being able to go to a real class, this is what I want to give them in the meantime.
Yeah.
So live is, you gotta, whatever, you might have gotten a phone call or something that brings you down. You got to get that out of your head, because, I'm there for the people to try to, teach them a little bit of technique and have a little bit of fun on the mats. And that's every time, I think that's everybody's mission that when they go to train, that should be their mission.
Yes, absolutely. I know that it's not the most ideal situation for jiu-jitsu training. Like, it's kind of frowned upon, right, in the jiu-jitsu community to study techniques online and video. Like, you should be in a class, you should be in a dojo, you should be with people. It's also about community and bringing people together.
This is an unusual time,
Yes. And it's been stress for me. I mean, as a restaurant owner as well, I want people to come to my place. I want them to eat. And it really took me, I was not into social media at all either. I started this show about just under a year ago, and that really kind of thrust me into it. But I've learned a lot along the way, and I'm glad I did. And digital media is becoming more front and center for me. But it was the same. I was like, you should come to my restaurant and eat. And I want to show you pictures of it. I don't want to show you videos of it. I want you to come and enjoy it. But right now, it's been my connective tissue to people, because people are not walking around. Most people are just calling and having us deliver. and it's been a form of communication, just like what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, thank you. Like, I needed to see that. It's almost like they need to see those signs of their previous life to know that, you know, like for me, I mean, I work every day. I'm out in the street every day. I haven't had an afternoon off since this all went down, but a lot of people got to just stay at home and they don't really get to see what's happening. And when you show that to them, it's like, okay, the world still exists. And I feel like that's a very martial arts thing too, you know, that you're the one taking those first steps and not being afraid to, you know, having that confidence. That definitely, I would have burned my places down. I think I told you that the other day. If I didn't have Professor Karel's messages constantly playing in my head, there would have been fires. There would have been fires for sure.
Yeah, we try to, you know, it's a bit of normalcy. You know, it's not the same as what I really want. I'm very much looking forward to getting back on the mats with my students. And on Sundays we go out, have tacos at a place nearby, and we just gotta, you know, shoot the breeze and talk about training and stuff, have a little fun, and then get ready for the week. I have actually a pretty big open mat on Sunday. So, but you know, I'm looking forward to that very much and to get on the road. I've had to cancel a lot of seminars all over the world in the next couple months, but I'm looking forward to that normalcy. But number one is just getting back on the mats with my students. But until that happens, at least this is something that's, it has to suffice for now.
So in addition to your schools, you also do seminars and you wrote a book as well, correct?
Yeah, book is an overstatement because I don't like to write. I don't consider myself very well spoken. And I wrote the book with a lot of pictures. So that's how I got around the writing part. But basically I didn't intend to. People told me, hey, Fox, you should write a book. You should write a book. I was like, yeah. I don't like to write. But I got tired of hearing guys like, you know, posting on social media or forums that they're going to turn 30 next year or this year, and that their body is broken down, and that you know, they're going to quit jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I wanted to say to them, like, I wanted to slap the guy, say, wake the fuck up. I don't know if you need to bleep that.
No. You can say what you want.
And maybe you're just not training right. Maybe your training methods or you're not, you know, focused on running into that wall repeatedly until you break through that wall. Did you ever consider they can go around the wall? You can go over the wall. You can dig under the wall. There's other ways. So that's what inspired me to write it, because I really didn't want to do it, but it's got a lot of pictures, so I didn't have to write so much. But it's an instructional book. It's called Flu BJJ. It's on Amazon, so anybody interested can pick it up.
So you've got a diverse little thing happening around jiu-jitsu that way, where you're not solely reliant, but mainly it sounds like mainly reliant on the schools, but you also
some
income on some of the things.
The bulk of my reliance.
Yeah.
Basically all my, you know, at the end of the day, everything that I do, I want that to come back to the school. That is the core of my my existence right now. As far as the business aspect or financial aspect, that's basically where everything I want, like anything that I do ultimately, you know, when I do seminars, people, you know, that I do it for, like literally around the world, you know, when they travel to the US, it's not necessarily, it's easy to not navigate around New York City, but, you know, to come to Jersey suburbs is not easy, but they come to my school to train, and ultimately my students benefit from that influx. And any, I teach camps and seminars in Europe and Costa Rica and you know, and Italy and Czech and Germany. So it's in Canada and so forth. So it's just basically more of a way for me to spread the message about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think sometimes people don't understand, like one of the things that I want to convey in the role with the Fox is, this is my game. This is what works for me. If you look at me, anything that works for me will work for anybody else just as well. But maybe this is not your style of game. Understand, I'm like whatever cuisine you want to choose. You go to an Italian restaurant, you're going to have Italian food. You go to a Japanese restaurant, you're going to have Japanese. This is my style. Maybe you could pick up some techniques, maybe pick up some philosophy that may work for you, even though your style is different. But if you really very technique centric, you don't want to try to force moves. You want to really almost play this as a human chess. I'm one of the guys for you, not the sole guy, but I'm one of the guys for you. So that's sort of like everything else I do helps convey that message and put it out into the world, whether it's digital or real.
Right. All right, we're gonna take one more quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about what going forward looks like in terms of your school and jiu-jitsu and what's happening in the States. Okay, everybody, we'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
TalkingAlternative.com.
Okay, everybody, last round. Ding, ding, ding. Welcome back. Last set, make it your best. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm ready. I want to start doing some rolls on this mat, man. So again, here with my guest, Professor Karel Pravec of Silver Fox Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Northern New Jersey. I wanted to ask you something. Have you ever competed?
Yes.
You did?
Yes. I didn't compete. I didn't compete till I became a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a big mistake.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it, but basically, because I think I was scared of it, so I wanted to do it because of that. But I really didn't want to do it because by then, when I started competing, I was teaching part-time and I was still working in finance, so I was extremely busy. And I was by then in my early mid 40s, and I didn't want to compete. For me, it was like, what for?
Right.
And I didn't realize my game was just not. My game was technically very good, but my biggest problem was I didn't account for strategies, tactics, weight, just all the rule sets, all this other stuff. Basically, when I went into competition, I would just try to submit the guy, which there's a lot more to it than just that. So I did a bunch of IBJJF events, and I would only compete, once or twice a year, whereas the guys I would compete against would compete, 10, 15, 20 times a year. And a lot of them were black belts that were competing since they were white or blue belts. And I realized that technically you could be better, but you could still lose. But I won, I competed some tournaments in Masters, which is over 30 and up. And, they have different categories past 30. And I competed some in adults, and sort of probably the two best medals or tournaments I won NAGA, North American Grappling Association, 2007 World Championship. I beat everybody by submission. And what they did was Masters bracket, but they combined all of them together. So I was the lightest guy in the whole division.
Right.
And the big one was I won. I took bronze, third place in I think 2008 Nogi Pan Ams, adult black belts, so not masters, but I competed against Cabrinha in that tournament in the semifinals. So it was those are probably my two best. Like I said, I won a couple of maybe 4 or 5 medals, maybe 6, but I didn't really. That was not my focus. I just did it to just do it, know how it feels, and I realized some of the mistakes I made. Like I said, I just went in to submit, and the lessons I learned, I can, obviously I know how my guys feel when they go in, everybody deals with the stress of competition differently, so it taught me quite a lot. I probably competed maybe total 15 times.
Yeah. That's why I asked. Cause I noticed I know you have competitors at your school, like, Sun Dojo is non-competition. I've no aspirations to compete. It's just, well,
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, exactly. But I heard you talking about some of your students, and you have guys that are actually MMA fighters and guys that are in. I was just curious because I never heard you talk about it, but I just
because I don't think, to be honest with you, I think a lot of schools are, they sometimes will change the way the school is run to basically kiss ass of the guys that are at the top of the food chain.
Right.
And I don't believe that's what martial arts are about. And that's how, what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is ultimately about. And I also, people say, well, if you didn't ever, feel the stress of competition, how could you defend yourself? Well, here's the reality. If you were competing, you might literally have psyched yourself out of winning a match or a few matches. And I fought in some karate tournaments, back in the 90s too. So you might literally psych yourself out of winning because you've been like, literally you can't sleep. You just can't mentally deal with that stress. Well, it's self-defense. Usually there is no forethought. Right. It's like, it's on, and how do you react? It's autopilot. So anybody that says like you really need competition to be effective in self-defense, I think they're just as much delusional as any. It just makes no sense.
I would tell them to go open their own business and then come back and talk to me in a couple of years. That being said, what adjustments have you made? And we have about 5 minutes left. I want to get like in the nitty gritty of the business aspect now. Have you made, and what are you looking for going forward? Like most immediately for getting the school back open, dealing with like state regulation and government regulation.
Well, that's an interesting question because I really, what we've done is offer a lot of online classes, Zoom, that a lot of my instructors are the guys, the black belts under me that teach. And I've taught a class every single day since I shut the school down. What we're looking for is to get some guidance. And I think, the government really has, first of all, I'm a logical person. I want to listen to science. I want to listen to reason. I want to look at numbers. I look at statistics literally every single day. Particularly, I pay attention to the states and countries that have opened up. And when I mean by open up fully, I mean they allow contact of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind. That's what I mean. So I literally pay attention.
That is the qualifier across the world now. Yeah. If you allow contact Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
you're fully open. So, yeah, you may have a one-day spike. You have to look at a trend line. Is the trend line up? If the trend line is up, that's very concerning. The trend line in all of them is either down or flat. Yeah, you may have it makes headlines. Oh, the single biggest new cases. And I don't pay attention to cases as much as deaths. To me, that's more important because
absolutely,
as testing becomes more available, you're going to have rising cases. So long story short, the one thing that was pretty clear, both scientifically, anecdotally, was that fresh air, sunlight is good for you. Yet the governor of my great state of New Jersey banned people from being outside and closed the state parks for about two or 3 months. Yet the guy claims that he's listening to science and he's not going to be swayed by people barraging him with open up now and all this. And I get it. That's a valid statement. But in 1918 flu epidemic, it's a proven fact that the patients that wind up with the flu, and I know this is not a flu, but it's a proven fact. And everybody, all the scientists from day one, first of all, logically, the virus will dissipate more quickly in air and then in enclosed area.
Yeah.
Vitamin D is beneficial for this. This was said from day one. Why would you close? And how easy is it to maintain social distancing in a park versus on the street or in a store? You also give people something to do. Being outside, it's good for the mental health. So basically, what I'm saying right now in New Jersey, we're in stage one, where gatherings of 500 people outdoors is permitted. Really? Yet there is yes. Do you when you see outside? Do you see people pay like? There's social distancing. There's people going through the motions and people actually doing it. Are people doing it? At least in New Jersey, they're not. People are going through the motions. And that includes the most vulnerable ones. In New Jersey, I think 43% or something like that of the deaths were in nursing homes. That's where the government should have really focused their efforts in. And I think New York, they had some very egregious problems with that as well, as well as in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So the government, instead of focusing across, should have focused on the weakest ones. We had field hospitals where people were sent back to nursing homes instead, where they were not acute enough to go into ICUs, but they sent them back to nursing homes instead of sending. I think the government had huge failures in leadership. I continue to see it. I'm not, pointing out just to my state, but I think that people are starting to just go through the motions. And if people are going through the motions, it means that the leadership isn't effective. Either you're not conveying the message well enough, or you're not leading appropriately. So at some point, I think people are starting to take things into their own hand. And you already see it in social distancing. You're either not getting the message across adequately, or your leadership is inadequate. I leave it up to the leadership to figure out which one they are.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap up. I want to thank you again so much. It was really a pleasure for me to get to meet you, at least digitally. Hopefully one day we'll get to do it live in the flesh. We'll bring the foxes together.
Sounds like a good plan.
But everybody can find you basically Silver Fox BJJ on all channels.
SilverFoxBJJ.com. If you just SilverFoxBJJ.com, you will reach you can find anything.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good luck with the reopen. I hope everybody stays safe, but I hope we all get back to this. It's our passion, our love, it's our lifeblood, and the world needs it. So keep up all the excellent work. Look forward to talking to you soon. I'd love to catch up in like a month or so once things
absolutely. I'd be happy to
see how things are going. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Have a great weekend. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. Peace out.
Thank you.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.